everyone, this is Dr. Supreet from Department of Commerce, Delhi University. So today we'll be talking about the international trade logistics and sourcing. In the last very segment, we talked about the basic concepts pertaining to our ITLS, right? So today, the very one thing that I was on and on talking about was the NLP 2022. So NLP is our National Logistical Policy 2022. Right. So, what is the need of having a national logistics policy? What were the bottlenecks? What were the impediments in the growth? So, we were having a cost of around 13 to 14% of GDP when it comes to logistical costing. That means the infrastructural costing. For example, if we want to get something from, let's say, Dubai to India, or let's say within the domestic periphery also, if one wants to call out for certain goods, they have to bring it out from, let's say, Bombay to Delhi. Then our costing, that is the average costing that was turning out, was very high. They were high transactional costing. So that is why the government envisioned the national logistical policy as a one which is very efficient, which is very much required to lower down our cost. And simply the aim of this NLP is to boost the economic growth, to make sure that the employment opportunities are boosted, and somehow to make the Indian products competitive in the global market. So when we say that we want to make the Indian products competitive in the global market, that means we are able to give a tough competition at the global markets in terms of not just the product quality but also the cost. We are amongst the you could say the largest producer of our organic products in India. But then if we talk about the logistical cost of the same, then the cost is one factor which is acting as a you could say a hurdle in the way. And even when we are talking about the Indian weaving industry, Indian carpet industry, we are not able to, let's say, gain the competitive advantage in the market despite having the quality products with us, because of the one reason, that is the logistical cost. So that is why government envision that this is very much needed. It is quintessential to have a national logistic policy, that policy which is somehow robust, which is efficient, which is effective in lowering down the cost in order to boost the economic growth and further to fill up the employment opportunities for the country. Right. So this is, when we talk about the vision of the government with respect to the same, the vision of the government has been stated up as to develop such an environment which is technologically enabled, which is integrated, cost efficient, resilient at the same time, which is sustainable and trusted logistical ecosystem for the inclusive growth. Now this vision, as the source indicates, this vision is there by the Government of India, which is stated into this DPIIT website, which clearly states that what is the vision of having such national logistical policy. The vision is very clear, very simple, that we need to integrate the entire system. We need to have such ecosystem which is very resilient, which is very robust, which is integrated, wherein our all the factors are somehow included into the growth. So if a person who is residing into a far-flung area, and let's say he is a farmer and he is producing or he is cultivating the organic crops. Now he wants to enter the global markets, but the cost that is turning out to be that is very high, because he resides in, let's suppose, a hilly area. So the transportation cost, that is also high, and then they're out to send the goods from one point to, let's say, when we are talking about the global markets, it is very difficult. Plus the documentary procedure is very cumbersome. A lot of, you could say, complexities arise into the picture. So that is why the vision is to enable, when we talk about an integrated system, that means we want to weave such structure wherein the growth is you could say accelerated, and we are taking care of each and every person, whether he resides into the hinterland area, whether he resides into the far-flung area. How come? By reducing onto the cost. So when we talk about creating this logistical ecosystem, we mean that every person is able to, let's say, take the benefit of a better infrastructure which is there in the nation, because if we are having the better roads, if we are having the better railways, better ports connectivity, then it will be very easy for, you could say, the Indian handicrafts industry, or whether you call about the artisans, whether you call about the farmers, for each and every person to establish their identity, to mark their presence in the global market. Right. So that is what is the vision behind having this national logistical policy. Now, when setting up this national logistical policy, there are certain targets which have been defined by the government, which has been taken up, that these are the benchmarks that we are setting, that we need to accomplish these benchmarks by, let's say, 2030. Right. So if we talk about the very first benchmark that has been set by the government is to reduce the logistical costs in India. Presently, we are having 14 to 15% of GDP cost as our logistical cost in India, and the aim under NLP is to reduce it down to 7 to 8% of GDP. Right. And if we are able to reach out to this particular cost of 7 to 8% of GDP, then there will be a better, efficient, you could say, logistical ecosystem wherein we are better able to offer our products or the services in the global market, right? And if we talk about, logistical performance index, there is an index which is known as your LPI index, right? And presently the state of India, when we are talking about its performance with respect to this LPI index, which is given by again our World Bank, presently we have jumped up from the previous 44th rank to the present day 38th rank, but the government's vision is that endeavor is to be there among the top 25 countries by 2030, and that could only be attained if we are able to attain the targets, if we are able to go by the plan that is drafted under this NLP. Further, the target is to create a support mechanism which is somehow data driven, so that we are having an efficient logistical ecosystem. So that is what is the target that has been set by the government under this NLP. And the target is very, there the common thread line that goes is to reduce the cost of logistics, right? And if we are able to reduce the cost of logistics, ultimately that means that we are imbibing or making use of all the technologies that are there. That means our support mechanism would be data driven, and that will create what? That will create an efficient logistical ecosystem. Plus, if we are able to cut down onto the cost, will be able to jump high onto the index. That is, the vision is there to be among the top 25 countries by 2030. So we'll be easily able to attain that target also, right? Further, when we are talking about logistical this logistical market, presently if we say that, then the government says that if we are able to go by this NLP plan, then if the current market worth is somehow, let's say, 160 billion, then we'll be able to jump around 215 billion USD of the Indian logistical market. So that will be the worth of the market in the coming 2 years if the targets that have been defined under the NLP are attained, right? So you could see that if that logistical cost is able to, if we are able to cut down onto the same, then how much how much great benefits that we can derive from the same. Further, if we look on to the records that have been provided by the ICRA, which is your Investment Information and Credit Rating Agency of India, right? So it estimates that this particular sector of your logistics, it will develop at a compounded growth rate of 10.5%. through 2025. So that means this is what is expected. That means if we are able to fulfill all the, you could say, programs, all the, you could say the line of activities which have been defined under our NLP, or the programs that has been set up under this NLP. So we'll be definitely able to achieve a better CGR in the coming years, right? We are better able to fill up the growth of economy. And when we are talking about this NLP, there are a number of factors that the government have defined in line with the same, so that again and again we are talking about reducing the cost, but how to do the same. So government has listed down, or you could say enlisted certain steps that could be taken up in order to, let's say, reduce the cost. So the very first one is the integration of the digital system. So when we say now integration of the digital system, that means we are presently having different departments, be it your road department, aviation department, then we have this commerce ministries, we have the transport department, railways department, foreign trade department. So but all these departments should not lead to you could say greater complexities. Rather the aim of the government is that to integrate all these different departments by creating such mechanism wherein all the activities, wherein all the processing of the things are digitally managed. So that is why it is said, if they are digitally integrated, that means if I want to send certain cargo from any, let's say, if let us suppose any ICD center is involved into the same, then every department should have the details pertaining to the same, that what is the, let's say, the cargo from where it is being dispatched, what are the quantum into the same. So every department, be it your road department, railways, aviation, whatever mode of transportation you are keeping in line. And similarly, the commerce ministries or the foreign trade should have an idea, a very clear-cut idea. And plus two, they should be able to trace out the goods in real time if the data is digitally integrated. So that is one step, because if we are manually relying onto the goods, there are a number of complexities, ambiguities with respect to the same. So that is the vision, to integrate the digital system. Further, when they talk about that, taking another step in this NLP is to standardization of the physical assets and the benchmarking service quality standards. That means to, you are setting a standard, you are creating a benchmark wherein the aim is to enhance the operability, wherein the aim is to reduce down onto the cost, where the aim is to reduce onto the risk, right? And then to enable the better optimization of goods and services. And if we are able to work on to these elements, thereby there will be better ease of doing business. When we talk about ease of doing business, then we say that when any person is operating a business in India, or any person from any, you could say, outside for India, and he is entering into the Indian premises and he wants to operate a business, he wants to start a business, then there should be ease of doing that business, with respect to the documentation, with respect to the financial requirements. And that can only be possible if there is a standardization of the assets, if there is a benchmark, any standards, quality standards have been set up under the your logistical this ecosystem. So that is why the government says that there should be a uniformity, there should be a standardization. Then only we'll be able to reduce on to the cost, we'll be able to minimize the risk, and thereby we'll be able to boost the growth, right? Further is another step is ease of logistics, which we call it as e-log. Now, what is the role of your e-log? As the name suggests, that this will ensure that there is ease with respect to transparency, that all the logistical entries that we are talking about, they, rather than being manually managed, they rather than they are being digitally driven or digitally managed. That will do what is, there will be better accessibility, there will be better transparency, and that will ensure what? That will ensure the ease of your entire logistical business. Further, the government would also go for the SIGs, that would be nothing but the system improvement groups, and those system improvement groups will be nothing but there will be ministries involved, different ministries, as I was referring to the waste ready point, wherein different departments will be keeping a watch, they'll be seeing for the feedback where the loopholes are, they will monitor all the logistical projects, they will constantly monitor the same, and therefore see for the areas of growth, they will see where the improvement can happen, they will see whether any irregularities are there or not, right? So that means constantly monitoring the different projects, whether it is with respect to the setting up the corridors, which could be your dedicated freight corridors, or setting up the ports, right, so as to ensure the ports connectivity. So that is what is the role is, to just improve, to just monitor the same, so that the improvement can happen in real time, the feedback, and if we are having the feedback and we are taking action on a real time basis, so there will be better you could say handling of the task, right? Then comes your Ulip, which is your unified logistical interface platform, right? And this Ulip will ensure what? It will ensure the very free flow of your movement of your cargo. It will ensure that the time period, the dwelling time period, whether we talk about, or otherwise the time period that is there while sending the goods from one point of origin to the ultimate point of destination, that time period is reduced, right? And it will also make sure that that entire process is very smooth, it is very fast, so that the time period gets reduced, right? And all these things would happen on a real time basis, right? Whether we talk about the movement of your cargo, whether we talk about exchange of information for this movement of cargo, if the goods are such that requires sort of confidentiality, so in that case also this should ensure this Ulip, that means we are creating a uniform sort of your logistical interface platform, and wherein all the aim would be to ensure the free better flow of your cargo movement, and to make sure that all sort of your complexities are removed, all sort of your if the earlier the time was taken up was much higher, but now the aim is to curtail down onto the dwelling time period, or otherwise whatever time is being taken up in sending the goods from one point to another point, that time period is also reduced, right? So when I talk about this Ulip, this is a sort of your, you could say, data chart which has been presented by, which has been there available onto Ministry of Commerce and Industries website, and this is nothing but this is just an flow chart or an integration status, that how your Ulip would work upon how different ministries, as I was also talking about the SIGs, wherein system improvement groups will be constantly monitoring the activities, they'll be seeing for the feedback, and they'll be improving the you could say the projects thereby. So you could see over here there are Ministry of Ports, there are Ministry of Civil Aviation, Road Transportation and Highways, then we have Ministry of Finance, then we have the other ministries as your Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Ministry of Railways, and various other source of your information, plus the MITI, that is there ensuring the digital locker, all the documents you need not to carry them up, rather all the documents can be digitally uploaded into your digital DigiLocker, right? This again is a great initiative by the government, wherein the government is boosting this digital India vision, right? So not just into the payments, but government is also making sure if suppose you are not carrying any documents, you need not to worry about the same. You can simply upload your documents into the DigiLocker and you can have access to your lockers, be you are there into any part of the world, at any point of the time, you can easily access the same, and they are as valid as your physical documents. So this METI through which all this digital locker is being done, this is a great initiative. And what is the functioning of Ulip? That is to integrate all the platforms. Now all these ministries would integrate with each other, whether we talk with respect to finance, whether we talk with respect to Indian customs, whether we talk with respect to your railways being involved, whether we talk with respect to, let's say, even the fast tag. So the movement, when you are sending the goods from one point to, let's say, to the point where the goods are sent to the warehouses, so if the mode of transportation is such that it has to go by the roads, so the database would also be there with the fast tag since you cross that particular pathway. Similarly, all these ministries, all these different you could say whether it is fast tag, whether it is your ICE gate, whether we talk about with respect to customs clearance gateway, so all these will be integrated. So just you could just look on to how easy it would be for both the importers and the exporters, for the government, for the other stakeholders to manage the process. So if everything is digitally integrated, one can easily imagine how fastly you'll be able to cut down onto the cost. You no longer has to depend on to the manual documents or to the manual filling of the forms or something. Everything is digitally managed. So the government and plus the importers and exporters are having the access to real time data. So that is what is one good another good, you could say, step taken under this NLP. Further, the government also looks for development of logistical parks. So whether if we talk about setting up the multimodal logistical parks, or setting up the ICD centers, or setting up the CFS centers, which are your container freight stations, or the cargo terminals for managing the intermediary functions, as in storing, warehousing, adding any values to the products, right, sorting them, or segregation, aggregation in that entire supply chain network. So that could be easily done if we are having dedicated logistical parks. So that dedicated logistical parks could be they are in the form of your cargo terminals, they could be in the form of your air freight stations or any logistical parks, right? So by developing such logistical parks, you will be able to create the hubs which will help you out in let's say handling the intermediary activities. So these are the few steps which are being taken under the NLP. We'll be continuing the NLP segment in the upcoming session, where we'll be discussing about the other steps that have been taken by the government under the NLP. So that's it for the day.